Hello and welcome to the Admin for You training channel. In this video, I'll guide you through the Employee Point System Absence Tracker, an Excel-based tool that's tailor-made for childcare centers that utilize an attendance point tracking system. This user-friendly tool is crafted to save you time, eliminating the need for tedious manual calculations, and the best part is that no previous Excel experience is necessary to take full advantage of all the benefits that this tool has to offer. Upon receiving this workbook, you'll discover two tabs serving distinct purposes. The first tab is exclusively designed for configuring absence codes and their point values, and the second tab, known as the Tracking Calendar tab, functions as a template to be duplicated for each upcoming calendar month. Customizing your absence codes is easy, and it sets the foundation for efficient tracking throughout your workbook. You'll notice that when you receive your workbook that it's been pre-populated with 5 commonly used absence codes for your convenience, but these are all completely customizable to suit the needs of the policies for your center. Also, you can have up to 10 customized codes with assigned point values. The absence codes maintained here are what you'll enter to track employee absences on your tracking calendar tabs. So you'll want to put some thoughtful consideration into how you're setting these up. It's best practices to use 1 or 2 letters. However, the system will accommodate up to 3 characters, and they should consist of letters, not numbers. The code and the description on the Information Setup tab will automatically be reflected on your tracking calendar exactly as you've entered them here. Also, you'll notice that there's a position number notated here. This is for reference on this tab as how you're entering, the order that you're entering these in here are the same order that you'll see them reflected on the tracking calendar. The last placeholder for absence codes is intended to be used to count excused absences. And while they don't have a point value, we wanted to make sure that you had a mechanism for customizing the code with your choice and also the description. So just remember that this last line in green has no point value, and the auto calculations will only count the number of instances that the code that you use here is used. Now that we've explored customization options on the Setup tab, it's important to note that while this tracker is completely customizable, any changes that you might make to this tab in the future will overwrite any historical entries that you've accumulated in the workbook. So, if you do anticipate making changes, it's important to preserve historical data. And to do that, we recommend saving the file under a new name before implementing any significant changes to your absence codes. This will ensure that past records remain intact, providing a comprehensive view of your historical information over time. You also might want to consider adopting a strategic file naming convention so that you easily can identify different versions or stages of your tracker. And this practice adds an extra layer of organization and safeguards to your historical data. All right, so before we move on to actually entering our absence data, I just wanted to take a quick minute here and show you what happens if you do happen to change your absence codes after you've started to accumulate some data in your spreadsheet. So what we have here is I have spreadsheets for January and February, and in January 1st was a holiday, and so that was an excused absence for everybody as a holiday. So that's marked as an X. But let's say in February, we decided we wanted to change this X to a different code. So if I go to the Information Setup and I navigate to our codes, and let's just change that code to a V. And in February, we can come over here and, maybe we have some excused absences with our new code and it's accumulating. But look what happens to previous months. See now where before this all populated with that code, because we've changed it, it is no longer looking at the letter X to formulate that tally. It's looking for the letter V. So that's why it's very important, if you do decide to make any changes, to go ahead and save that workbook under a different name so that you have your historical information preserved, and then going forward using your new codes. And so I'll show you here real quick. We'll just change this back to our original X. And if we navigate back to January, then you see how all of our information has repopulated here. And then as an example, in February, where we put that V, it's not calculating any information. All right, moving right along into the tracking calendar, you'll notice that in the top left-hand side, there is a place for you to customize this with your school name. And to do that, you just click in the cell and type in your name, your school name. One other thing I wanted to mention is you'll notice these gray cells here. Those are grayed out because they are protected cells. And so we've just taken an extra measure to protect the formulas that drive these great calculations here. And so if you do try and click in one of these cells and enter a value, it is going to give you an error message to let you know that it is protected. All right, now we're ready to enter employee absence data. But before we do that, let's make a copy of the tracking calendar tab. And what this does, it ensures that you have a fresh template for the new month. It's very simple to do this. All you do is right-click on the tab and select Move or Copy. Then you'll want to be sure to select the Create a Copy checkbox and select OK. And you'll notice that a new tab is created. It will maintain the same name, however, it'll add an extension number onto it. So we want to go ahead and change the name of the calendar. And to do that, you just double click on it and the text will highlight and you can enter your new calendar month name. Also, at this point, you can move your tabs to wherever you would like within the document. So I'm just going to move that over to the far right-hand side. And then now we want to make sure that the calendar information at the top of the screen is correct. So it's currently on the month of December. I'm going to change that to January, and you'll notice that it automatically updates. But we need to also change the year, and that's done by simply typing it in. And when you do that and exit out of the cell, you'll notice that your calendar automatically updates. All right, so next you're going to want to enter your employee names in the employee name column. And this field is free-form text, and so that allows you to input information quickly and conveniently. And since employee names don't generally change too much from month to month, now would be a good time to go ahead after your names have been entered and create additional tabs for the year. And you do that just like we did a moment ago by selecting Move or Copy, creating a copy, and then inserting the new tab, copy tab, and then renaming the tab. And then now would also be a good time to go ahead and save your work to make sure that you've preserved your changes. All right, so now we can go ahead and enter absences. So to enter an absence, you can either type in the corresponding code, or there is a drop-down selection box on each cell. And as long as that code is showing at the top here, it will accept the code, it will assign the point value, and you'll start to see under the absence point accrual that sum to start adding up all of the values. Now, we also discussed earlier about when your employees have absences that are exempt from the point values, and those would be indicated by an X. And by doing so, rather than adding points, it's just going to provide you with a count of how many of those approved absences they have. Now, I did want to show you what happens if you try and enter a code that isn't maintained on your information tracking sheet. So I'm just going to go ahead and type the letter Y. It's not one of our codes. And when I enter that, you're going to see that an error message pops up. And that's just telling me that that's not a valid code for this worksheet. You can just go ahead and hit cancel. It'll erase it from the cell. And then you can go ahead and enter the proper code. So now you see, as we're starting to add codes, for each code that we're entering, we'll enter a couple more T's here so that you can see how it's starting to accumulate the totals under each category, but also you'll see that running total under the accrual. And you can just continue that. We'll just put a couple more in here so that you can see. And then you would do that for each employee throughout the month. And you'll see how that just adds up automatically. When you're ready to print, the document is already configured to print on 8.5 by 11 paper. But before you hit the print button, let's ensure your document is perfectly tailored to your needs. If you find that your Excel workbook is spilling over multiple pages when you're ready to print, here's how you can print only a specific number of pages. First, take a moment to preview your document, and you do this by navigating to File, then selecting Print Preview. This will give you an overview of how your document will look when printed. It'll look similar to what you're seeing on the screen right now. Next, navigate to the Page Setup, or it may be Print Setup, depending on your Excel version, and here you'll have access to various settings that control how your document is printed. Look for the option to specify the pages you want to print, and you typically can do this by entering the page range. For example, if you only want to print page 1 to 3, then enter 1 to 3 in the page range field. And once you've specified the pages you want to print, verify your settings to ensure everything looks as expected, and then simply hit the print button to only print those selected pages. By following these steps, you can ensure that your Excel workbook prints exactly the number of pages you need, saving paper and ink in the process. This concludes our training for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.